All right, I think it's time to talk about one of the hardest things I've ever had to learn, both in life and in business. Something that I've known for a very long time, but I didn't fully understand until probably last week. And that's the difference between operating out of need and operating out of plenty. In simple terms, operating out of need means that when you're working, you're having to spend everything that you earn. You need the money, you need it to live, to pay your bills. Operating from plenty means when you're working, when you're making money, you don't need it to live. You can save it, you can invest it. And obviously there's a spectrum in between, but the distinction finally actually made sense to me here. I grew up without. I think it's the easiest way to put it. We obviously could get into the nuances of what that means. I thankfully was born with access to education and with some of the benefits of being white boy in America, but I was also born without a lot of support, family, money, all those kinds of things. And I started life very much behind, in debt before I even reached the age of majority, and I was always playing catch up. And that's what I mean when I say need. Operating from need means that you actually are always just trying to catch up to where you think you should be or where you actually need to be to get started. Operating from plenty is having the availability of capital. Not to get into that kind of terminology here right now, but it blew my mind coming here and seeing how, I was like, how do people make money running a bar, a coffee shop, cafes? So many of these things just have to be fronts, right? What is it with cars backing up and pulling onto curbs behind me in the last couple of days? I see the margins and I see how little money you're probably making. Like, how are you paying yourself? There are people in this world that can open businesses that don't need to pay themselves. They can actually just run the business because they have family or savings or something behind them that makes it possible. And I've known that intellectually for a long time, but it never clicked until basically like a week or two ago. The reason this blows my mind is just because it's not the paradigm that I've lived within. Like, support, somebody to fall back on. Maybe even just like investment in what you're doing, somebody that takes some of that risk off of your shoulders so you can focus. I've always had to spend literally everything I've made just to survive, but I've also always been really ambitious and tried to put a lot of effort and work into big dreams, which take more than I've ever really had access to, which is a good encouragement to grow, to build more than you would otherwise do so that you can reinvest that into your project. But it's a stressful way to live. Thanks to today's patron producer, Robert Colburn, and all my patrons for making this possible. If you've ever wondered how to get into the credits at the end of one of these videos, that's really loud. I don't even know if you can hear me. Let's try this again. Attempt number 2. Thanks to my patron producer, Robert Colburn, and all of my patrons for making this possible. If you've ever wondered what the patron producer thing was, or how to get your name in the credits at the end of these videos, why did I think this would be that much quieter? All of my patrons end up in the credits at the end of the videos, all of my active patrons. All of my patrons of all time ended up in the back of my book when I published it. So if you didn't know that, and you're a patron before 2019 or whatever, your name is in the back of that book. But if you want to be a patron producer, patrons at the Wanderer level and above, because they're different levels of patronage, their names get randomized in a spreadsheet by Emily, and then I just go through and grab them every video I make and throw them in here to make sure that we get, hopefully, through everybody. If you'd like to be a patron producer, head over to patreon.com/Jay Swanson. And you can support me wandering around Paris making these goofy videos in between meetings and seeing people and getting elven costumes for dogs. This all kind of came to light for me, and the reason that it started to make sense was because of a story of someone I know who has a freelance job and they're working from a place of need, and the money that they're making, they're spending. And it turned out that they needed an equipment upgrade to keep doing the job that they've been doing. And if they'd been able to save that, just what they were earning a part of it for a few months, they'd have been able to afford that equipment. But now they're in a position where they have to work even harder, like work more to make up the extra difference to buy the new equipment, to keep the job they already have. When if they had that savings right there, they could have just upgraded and kept working as normal and everything would have been okay. Long escalator here. He's already going. It's hilarious. Adam got an elf costume for Cooper.
They're gorgeous. Your food is really
I'm trying to come talk to you on camera, but I'm attached to a dog that's peeing on a tree right now. I guess largely because I've been put into this position. I mean, my own decisions have put me in this position. Other people's decisions have also put me in this position. It's a good mix of just finding myself kind of in a rough patch where I need to dial things in and really knuckle down. Finally highlighted for me potential benefit, like how nice it would be to have an emergency fund, to have the things that people talk about, the things you know, but the things that I personally have always gone ahead and spent because I was looking to the future and trying to invest in potential. And I'm in a better place than I've ever been as far as that's considered. Like I'm definitely not in as bad places as I've been before, so I've learned a lot over the years. But at the same time, it's actually clicking for me. I wasn't raised with much in the way of financial literacy. Like I said, I had a really rough start with all of this, and I've had to learn so much through like the school of hard knocks as much as anything. That's what actually gives me a good sense of hope, even in the midst of the difficulties that I'm facing right now, is that I'm in an okay position. It's not great, but I've also learned a lot of really hard lessons, and they're finally getting through my very thick skull. And so now it's just a matter of like, all right, let's make it through the next few months of challenge and then get out the other side, hopefully. And when I get out the other side, build up a bit of a cushion, both for emergencies, but also for opportunities, because you never know what's going to come knocking when. And I've missed out on some really fun potential opportunities that I would have loved to have been able to jump on, but I just didn't have the money handy. And at the same time, you just never know when something's going to come out of left field, like your American tax accountant trying to double up your fees for the year for some reason, and then all of a sudden you can't submit your taxes to the US government on time because you're trying not to pay double. Fun stuff like that. And two thoughts here as to why this is really important for me to share, and just in case you're not following. What I'm trying to capture the spirit of for myself is this reminder, and one of the biggest lessons from this year is that hard times are not a moral failing. The way that I was raised is to believe that good things only came from God and anything bad that was happening was ultimately my fault is still kind of in there to some degree. So it's really hard for me not to see things going wrong as somehow a shameful element of who I am and where I am in the moment. It can be really, really challenging to feel like it's actually not really my fault to be in a situation, especially when it's true for some reason. Like when I know it's not my fault that I'm in a bad situation, or like I've said, I made some choices, I took some risks, and that is what I decided to do. But just because it didn't pan out doesn't make me a bad person. So I think that's one thing that's really important to capture on the one hand. And on the other, the reason is because I've been through hard times before. When I started this channel, I started this channel a long time ago, but when I started daily vlogging in 2016, I was this close to going bankrupt. I was deep in the hole, and unlike today, all I was gambling on was potential. All the money that I was making, I was spending on my publishing projects or on this tech startup that I had going with my friends, and none of it was bringing in any money, and honestly, none of it was bound to anytime soon. And obviously the difference is now I've built an actual business with actual revenue streams and actual like meat to it. And so me spending money trying to grow that and trying to take some risks on that specifically is also a wonderful sign of growth in where I am today as opposed to where I was back when my whole life completely went to crap. So I also then have to disentangle the emotional sensation that like, oh no, I'm here again. Things are going wrong. I'm a terrible person. Everything's over. It's not over. I see light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to be okay. And one of the greatest regrets that I have from those vlogging days early on was I never fully shared just how stressful it was and just how bad my situation was because I was too ashamed to do so. And it's still challenging to share this stuff. It's still challenging to be honest that things aren't as great as I wish they were. But the reality is that I'm not doing anybody any favors by not sharing it, including myself for the future. The ability to look back and remember just how tough things were, just how stressful they were, so stressful that I ended up in the hospital. You know, like that's an important part of my story that I need to remember because often we just brush over that stuff and reset and forget everything we put in to get to where we are. And so it's very valuable as well just to save it for myself. So I wanted to make sure to tie that together for you here because, and for myself for the future, I guess, but like it's a very important element of why I'm sharing some of these stories right now in a very difficult time. Like it's very, very hard for me to get everything done that I need to get done right now. And I am listening to my body and I am taking some breaks, feeling pretty tired right now. So I'm going to wrap this up and eat something and just veg for the rest of the evening. But I also think it's incredibly, incredibly important to capture these moments as they're happening and try to share them as articulately as I can. So feel free to leave a comment below if you have any questions or if like I'm not sharing as articulately as I could. But I feel really privileged that I have the opportunity to share with you. And I know that a number of people out there are going through hard times too. So many people in my life are struggling, like Paris. It's been rough this year. And I think globally that's fairly true from what I see in the comments and everybody talking. Like it's just a tough time to be alive right now in so many ways, and to be in business and to be in all these things. It's really challenging, and you're not alone. And we can get through this. I don't know exactly how all the time, but I know we can get through this. And to reward you for joining in on Jay's stressful journey through life in Paris, let's go back to Dancing Cooper for the Patreon credits. Thanks for watching.